Good afternoon. I'm Jim Schurter, and on behalf of the Mott Community College Fine Arts Gallery and Art and Design Department, I'd like to welcome you to Art Talk, our new series of talks that will feature professional artists sharing insights into their creative processes. We would like to thank the Ballinger Trust for helping to make these talks possible. Our next talk will feature museum curator and MCC educator Sarah Cohn, titled Framing Infection, Art During the Time of the Pandemic, which will give us an opportunity to look at artists' reactions to pandemics in a historical context. Her talk will be live streamed on Monday, November 2nd at 12 p.m. To view that live stream, please visit us at gallery.mcc.edu. Today, it is my pleasure to welcome New York area artist and educator Raul Manzano to Art Talk. Raul is currently a visiting art assistant professor at SUNY Empire State College in New York. His paintings have been shown in museums, consulates, galleries, and community centers in Canada, Spain, Israel, and the United States, and have been published in scholarly peer-reviewed journals, magazine covers, catalogs, and periodicals. He is an award-winning artist who most recently received a second prize award at Strive, a national juried art exhibition, and a grant from the Puffin Foundation for his project In the Eye of the Beholder. Manzano has lectured at leading New York City museums and universities and served as a juror on exhibition panel committees. His doctoral degree in interdisciplinary studies with a concentration in museum studies from the Union Institute and University. He has earned a Master's of Arts in Liberal Studies with a specialization in studio practices and curatorial studies at SUNY Empire State College, and a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Illustration and Painting at the School of Visual Arts in New York. Raul is a mentor in the visual arts at Empire State College, Brooklyn's and Hudson locations, and directs the in Barcelona, Spain. Welcome to Art Talk, Raul.
Thank you, Jim. It's a pleasure to be here with you and with all of you, going live through this fantastic medium of technology.
Well, we are very thankful to have you today.
Terrific. First of all, I also want to give a special thanks to my good friend, Gina Andrews, for making this presentation possible. And my topic today is the fading of the American dream, a concept that I developed through the lens of the Statue of Liberty as a symbol of freedom and hope. But before we move into this area, Jim, I would like to tell you a little bit about my background. I know this is a new audience that we are reaching out to, and perhaps this might be a good time to do that part of this introduction. I was born in the city of Cali, Colombia. My mother was an artist, and she introduced me to the art world through her own paintings. She did landscape painting, pastoral paintings, floral painting, and still lifes. And these were my early learning about painting. And I used to copy her works through charcoal drawings and color pencils and tempera, which were the mediums that were available to me at the time. So my work focused on the landscape and also on the figure during this time. So growing up in Colombia, my ideas were informed by history, war events, day-to-day contact with people, my travels, and memoirs. And seeing and experiencing these inequalities between the rich and poor and socially divided societies made me think about these issues, and they kind of stuck with me throughout my life. And eventually, this had been the kind of topics that I had developed over the years through my work. So I just want to say that I not only experienced that in Colombia and saw those inequalities, but I also saw them here in the United States. I learned about the Statue of Liberty through books, magazines, newspapers, journals, watching movies, and was fascinated with this image as a symbol of freedom and hope in a place called the Land of Opportunities, the United States. And I say to myself, one day I will be there. And when I arrived in the United States, the first place that I went to visit, guess what? Was the Statue of Liberty. And of course, and when I was there looking at this gigantic image of this figure in this island, made me think about the perfect anecdote for all those immigrants coming here for the very first time, looking for better opportunities, including myself and my family. So I was fascinated with the Statue of Liberty, and her image has driven me to explore different topics through and from different perspectives, I should say, rather, with the image of the Statue of Liberty. And as we know, since her creation, what was meant to symbolize freedom and equality to all, became the mother of exiles after the famous sonnet by Emma Lazarus, The New Colossus. So, and this part, when Emma Lazarus wrote that poem, the Statue of Liberty became associated with immigrants. We have to remember that when the sculptor Bartholdi, Frederick Bartholdi, created the statue, it wasn't meant to be for immigration or for immigrants per se. It was meant to symbolize freedom and equality at the time. So, but because of the Statue of Liberty was also placed in the harbor in New York City, and all the immigrants from Europe who came through New York, that was the first sight that they saw when they arrived here in New York on the East Coast. Of course, on the West Coast, the situation might have been different. So I began to think about this image to address and question American values, the spirit of freedom, democracy, and more importantly, the life risk pursuit of the American dream for many immigrants. And it was during my last year in college at the School of Visual Arts when I began to incorporate the image of the Statue of Liberty into my work. This has been already 10, 15 years after I arrived here. The first few years in this country, like any other immigrant, was first to learn the language, which I didn't know at the time, find a job. I did many type of jobs during this time, and eventually I was able to get into in a better position and working in the banking industry in Wall Street. So this was part of those early process that I had to do before I actually began to grow and evolve as an artist. I had been, during all this time, I was painting mostly landscapes and figures because the figure was something central to my work, and eventually it became the focus of my work, the figure. So my work was kind of representational, if you will, and figurative in approach. So that's how I kind of began to incorporate the Statue of Liberty and to address those topics that concern me. And also by using the Statue of Liberty, it's an image that a lot of people recognize and have a concept about the Statue of Liberty. And what I had done is to do a transformation, if you will, of the image of the Statue of Liberty to present it to the viewer with a different approach. And what I like to do, or what I want to do with that, is to test the viewers' learned notions about the Statue of Liberty and what the Statue of Liberty represents to them in relation to the paintings that I am going to present in a few moments. I also like to call this, or my paintings, transformative paintings and narrative paintings because they tell a story. And I like, as I said, to invite the viewer to reflect on those issues, or perhaps to learn a new meaning about the Statue of Liberty today. Well, having said that, Jim, I would like to invite you into my studio, and we can take a short walk, if you will. And I know we have Brian behind the scenes, who is the person who's gonna give us the clip for the video.
Well, that would be great.
Fantastic. Okay, here we are. Although my screen is small, but I'm gonna try to explain what's going on. This is my studio in New York City. This is one of the images of the Statue of Liberty. The size is about 5 feet by 3. Another image representing celebration of July 4th through the American flag. And floral painting is also something, as I say, that I like to do, because this is something that I learned early on with my mother's paintings. And this painting is a reflection of 9/11, and it has a postcard attached to the flag of the United States. This is a painting that I did earlier in 1999, and the painting that you are seeing now is from 2001. And here is walking into my studio. Pardon the mess. It's hard to keep an artist's studio in order, but I try my best. This is one of my early works during my school days. And some of the paintings that I did during my travels to Barcelona and Italy, particularly in Florence. And I do a lot of sketches for my paintings, and sketching is important because that's how I draw the initial idea for my concepts, and I do many type of sketches, so small ones, medium size, large ones, as you can see here. And on this view, we have one of the images that we're going to see later. So this is how I begin. I do the drawing of the size of the painting. These are images of 30 by 24. And one of the images is the painting when it was in progress, and we will see later the finish. These are all oil paintings, what we are seeing here, because oil has been the medium that I have focused on. And again, one of the paintings, while it was in progress, this concept changed several times from the picture that you see here to the end, the final painting. This is one of the book that I draw and that I use for my class with my students, Baby Steps to Drawings, because a lot of students, sometimes they feel intimidated about drawing. So I try to make the process a little bit easy for them. And the lower painting is a prototype that I did for the larger painting on the right side. And this painting is kind of inspired by the work of Jasper Johns, the 3 flag paintings. 3 canvases that are overlapping over each other. The large canvas represents the 13 colonies at the beginning. We pass it up. The second canvas, the 50 states, and the last canvas, what the United States has become. And these are, again, sketches and drawings that I do all the time. This is one of the paintings that I did for a show. And some more paintings. Sometimes I work on multiple canvases at the same time. because oils takes a little longer to dry, obviously, than acrylics. And I like to work slow. My process is slow. I don't want to rush to finish the painting in a day, and that never happens to me. And these are paintings in progress. This particular painting was interesting, and when I did it, and it became a little success somewhere in my college because it represents the logo of the school. This is another painting that I did based on 9/11, the shaking of the country. And this is an early painting when I was in a school. And actually, I did this painting in Barcelona, Spain. I was taking a painting class there. Actually, the same program that years later, I became the director of the program, painting in Barcelona. And this is the Sagrada Familia. I also started this painting in Barcelona, and I finished it here in New York. This is about 5 feet tall by 3 feet wide. And again, the space in my studio in New York City. And we're walking back.
Well, is your studio attached to the college, or is this a separate studio that you have?
It's a separate studio, yes.
I love these little glimpses. I appreciate your organized chaos.
Yes, thank you. It's hard sometimes to keep it orderly. Although I think I am a very organized person in that sense, but sometimes it's kind of difficult because you need to have things that you need to see in front of you immediately. If you file them away, you don't see it, you tend to forget. So you need to have
Absolutely.
all that visually in front of you. Excellent. So what we can is to begin the slideshow, and I can walk the viewers through the paintings. And but before we do that, I would like to introduce you to the works of my mother. And if I can get the larger view of the slides, so I can see where we are going through. Okay, I see there only small slides.
Raul, actually, I know we're doing this through Zoom, everybody.
Right.
Raul, if you go up and click on the image, there's some three little dots at the top of your screen. If you click those 3 little dots, you can pin that image, and it will be what shows up largest on your screen as well. So you can see it a little bit better, hopefully.
All right, this is better. Excellent, good. So these are the words of my mother, Fanny Cecilia Valdivieso de Manzano. She was, as I said, my first mentor or instructor. These are the paintings that she did during her youth. The days are between 1945 and 1950. She was about 16 years old, between 16 and 20 years old when she created these paintings. These are pastoral scenes that she learned at the school. And they are very colorful. And as I say, color became important to me in my work, and seeing all these beautiful colors was part of eventually what I developed throughout the years. And if we can take a look at the next slide, Jim, here are some of her other works, Seascape Paintings, and again, colorful, and things that I did when I was small. I probably was at the age between 10 and 14 when I was sort of copying the works of my mother through color pencils and charcoal and tempera. And on the next slide, we can, these are some of the early works that I did before I came to the United States. And the dates range between 1977 and 1980. And the charcoal drawing that you see in the center, the man with the pie, was probably one of my first charcoal drawings. it's about size 18 by 24. And the other images are popular singers of the time, which I was very much, it was part of my life at the moment. Disco music, rock and roll, some ballad singers, Spanish singers on the left side, and on the one on the right side of your eyes. These are large pictures, about almost 4 feet by 3 feet. And I was around 18 years old when I was doing this kind of big paintings, and I think they were too large for the for the time when I was working, starting out as an artist, as a student, basically, at the moment. So these are all oil paintings. From here, I started doing works with tempera, and then I switched to oil paintings. Acrylics. I did some acrylics during my time in college. So these are some of my early images, and as you can see, they are very figurative, and that's why my work eventually, as I grew older as an artist, it is reflected in the works, even in the images of the Statue of Liberty, because at the end, after all, is a figure. We can go to the next slide, Jim. And here is one of the paintings that I did when I came in 1999, a little bit after some of the images that we're going to see later. But this is how I saw America. A beautiful place, a place of celebration, a place that welcomes everybody, and a place where one can live the American dream. And this is how I felt as I adapted my life here in this country. And it was just a wonderful place, a wonderful thing to happen to me in that particular case. And on the next slide, Jim, this is another version of how I saw America. And this time I incorporated the American flag on the drapery of the Statue of Liberty to give it a more powerful representation of the democracy that we so lucky have in this country. And the next image. The next image, I call this image Oxygen. And this image is from 1996. The ones we saw before were 1999. And this is when I began to image of the Statue of Liberty in my work at the school, when I was at the School of Visual Arts in my last year. And the painting was created to call attention to our environment. Pollution was something that was going on during this time, and also to criticize the manufacturing companies for what they were doing to our environment, and in a way to ourselves, because we are also we also contribute to the pollution of our own environment, and we need to take responsibilities for creating a better place, not only for us, but for our families and for the future generations. So as I say, by using the image of the Statue of Liberty, I wanted to reinforce that message, because once you see this image related to the Statue of Liberty, kind of call your attention somehow, because you don't associate the image of the Statue of Liberty wearing a gas mask or breathing mask in order to survive. So if we go to the next painting, and again, and I began to think about issues that deal with race, and I thought about minorities, particularly Black people, and I thought, what if the image of the Statue of Liberty represent an African American woman instead of an European one, which is the model that the Statue of Liberty has? How will other minorities feel if the Statue of Liberty has the representation of a Black woman. And so these are kind of the confrontational images that I like to present to the viewer, so they can begin to make their own assumptions of what this image might represent. I don't want to sort of imply or enforce something, but I'd rather the viewer take a more direct approach as to what the picture sent to them. And on this idea, the next slide that we have, Jimmy, we can move to the other slide. Right, so what if the Statue of Liberty will have been a Native American person? Will have the same reaction about how she looks? Can she still convey the message of freedom and hope? I also want to point out that Native Americans do not relate to the Statue of Liberty as we Westerners do relate to the Statue of Liberty, of what we know about the Statue of Liberty. So I just want to highlight that point. So Native Americans were here before immigrants, particularly European immigrants, came to the United States, and then later on immigrants from everywhere, including Latin America and Asia. So what if that image would have been represented by something not a European face or racial face? Will that have the same impact? And if we take a look at the next slide, Jim, faceless. What if she has no facial or racial features? Can we still associate to the Statue of Liberty in some ways? Perhaps an image that everybody can relate to, and perhaps an image that everyone can give her their own identity without having to be concerned about what she really represents. So if we move to the other slide, Jim, this image, the darkest day, this is in representation of 9/11. 9/11 had a big impact on me. I not only was on location at Ground Zero, but I almost saw my American dream fade away due to the terrorist attack that happened that day in New York City, Pennsylvania, and Washington. Of this attack on 9/11. The background, of course, is a dark, melting kind of background, dark to represent in a way the melting of the towels. Her cry is for the sadness and sorrows for all the lives that were lost during this tragic day. And the ribbon, of course, is to symbolize our democracy is still standing there. And the next image, blind justice. This image could have many meanings, depending on how the viewer obviously might experience when they see it. But what I wanted to highlight with this image is immigrants that do come here thinking of the land of opportunities, as we all have been known, the United States. They come here blindfolded. They do not know the language. Many are unfamiliar with the culture. Even the climate is different. And they find themselves unwelcome in a place that is supposed to welcome them. And so this is a shocking reality that many immigrants do not see it, do not understand, and think that we got to go to the United States, but they find themselves confronting a reality that they didn't think it could happen. So the next slide. Here I want to pause for a moment because we take inspiration from other artists. And as I mentioned, my mother was my early mentor. And one of the artists that I learned and I was fascinated with his work was Mexican muralist Diego Rivera, because his works speaks of working class people, the people that have been marginalized, the people that have suffered discrimination, injustice, and many of the other social issues that they have to face. So this painting was created based on this. And on the left side, you see some of the preparatory sketches that I did before I developed the painting that is in process on the right side. And as Rivera implied with the large basket of flowers that this woman is carrying over her shoulder, almost like crushing her down. And this is how she has to make her living in order to provide for her family. So I transported that woman, if you will, to represent her through the image of the Statue of Liberty for the farmers that work here in the fields, picking up fruits to provide food for the American public and in general. But yet they find themselves to be slaves of work. It's a kind of work that they don't have an opportunity to move on, to move onto some other areas of better conditions of working, and also to provide for their families. So the chains that she has around, it replaced the bandana that Rivera had in his painting. And that chain also is a symbol for slavery, the slave work that these people endure, because many of them are abused, they are underpaid, and sometimes they don't even get paid for the work that they have to do. And on the next slide, we can see the final painting by Rivera. The paintings are done through a lot of layers of paint. And I also work in stages as I develop, do the paintings. And I apply at least 3 layers of colors are applied to each of these sections of the painting: the Statue of Liberty, the flowers, the basket, even the background. When you build layers, the colors become richer, and you get a stronger tonality. And colors, as I said, is something that a lot of color in my paintings. And also with this picture is, in a way, for me to pay homage to Diego Rivera as an artist, to another artist who inspired me to create this painting. And eventually, from this painting, other paintings emerged that we're going to see in a moment. So if we go to the next slide, Jim. Feel free to stop me any moment if you have any questions. I hope I'm not going too fast. I'm not quite sure. I know we have a time frame, so I'm trying to stay with the time.
I'm fully engaged in everything you're saying. This is fascinating to me. And I have questions for you, but they can wait for right now.
Okay, very well. All right, so, okay, my image, yeah, get this back. Wow. Liberty will always prevail. I did this painting back in 2007. This was during the Bush administration, where, if you recall, we were the Bush administration was like a big brother watching you. And there was this thing with the tapping of the telephone, listening to conversations of what people were talking, perhaps criticizing the government, and so on. So I even have friends that tell me I am being listened over the phone because I hear somebody else in the background. Anyhow, so this painting emerged because of that situation of the rights that our own government is taking away from us, the freedom of speech, and in a way taking that American dream away from us. It's like the fading of the dream going away because the government is manipulating how we should live. And if we move on to the next painting, this is also a continuation of this area. And this painting is based on the Three Wise Monkeys. You might be familiar with it. See no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil. And here, the way I see it at the time, our public elected officials don't want to take responsibilities for their duties to speak for the public and to help the communities in what they are supposed to do, what they were elected to do for the people of their town, the cities, and the country in general. So this is encapsulates that concept of our elected officials that do not want to take responsibilities for what they are supposed to do. And this is a triptych, and each of them is a panel or canvas is 34 by 24, 30 by 20, sorry. So, and that's how each one of them, 30 by 24. On the next,
Raul, how do you think? I mean, we're talking about 2008 when you created this piece of work, right? Here
right.
We are in 2020, and so many of these issues you've been talking about haven't changed, right? Or in some cases, maybe are even more prevalent today in society. So, how do you feel about that with your work? And I mean, it's definitely standing up to the test of time, right? Unfortunately.
Yes, unfortunately, and yes, that is a very good question, Jim, because how could something that happened back in 2007 is happening again in 2020? And it's almost like a history seemed to repeat itself. And the question I would say, what have we learned from the past to make things better moving forward and into the future? It's a mind-boggling in a way for me, because one might think that things that we learned from the past, we no longer are going to be doing those things today, but it seems to be the opposite. And sadly, under the current administration, this seems to be happening. Did I answer your question, Jim?
You did, yes.
Okay, thank you. And here, speaking of that, disintegration. I just want to take a pic for a moment at the picture. And she's holding on her hand, this is the Statue of Liberty, and the tablet that she holds, which indicates the birth of this nation, July 4, 1776. And on the lower part, the tablet seems to be eroding away, breaking apart from the forgotten origins on how this country was founded. And it seems to be kind of disintegrating by manipulating what the Constitution says, changing the Constitution, or not abiding by what the Constitution is supposed to say, or what we are supposed to follow according to the laws of the Constitution of the United States. So the tablet symbolizes the rupture, the breaking apart of those elements that founded this country, that has provided life and progress not only for the people that live here, but around the world. And it is sad for me to see this breaking of this pact that was done more than 2 centuries ago to being dismantled in some ways. And if we can take a look at the next painting. Be aware of Tío Trom. Tío in Spanish means uncle. And the painting here refers to, in a way, to Uncle Sam, who is the vigilant, if you will, of the American people. And here, Mr. Trump becomes the uncle or the tío who pray to someone who's going to provide for everyone. And be aware, of course, because I do not believe that that is necessarily the case, as the painting brings issues of discrimination, jobs, security, housing. And again, the painting was inspired by the early painting that I did based on Diego Rivera's. And again, she carries that heavy load over her shoulder because this is what we are even currently today facing now that we have a new elections coming up. And this was pre-election of 2016. So just to bring something that happened back 2016 seems to be happening again 2020. You asked me the question earlier about these issues that I did in 2007 seem to be repeating again today. So if we move on to the other ones, okay, the burden on the line, trying to read the caption on the picture, the burden on the alignment. Again, this is the a series of 3 paintings that I did with the basket over the shoulders of the Statue of Liberty. And it is said that education is the foundation to create better societies. And all of us, and particularly as Jim, that we are working in an educational institution, the importance of education for our to help them to become more not only responsible citizens, but also our future leaders in whatever professions they might choose. And one of the quotes that always comes to mind is by Bell Hooks, when she said that education as the practice of freedom, and education can provide you with that. And but you have to be equally responsible in the sense because education provide with a responsibility, and that responsibility is what we all, or what she carries on over her shoulder, the responsibility of becoming a better citizens, better humans, if you will, and that's part of having that process of education. And education is extremely important at all levels. And I wish everybody will have the opportunity to attend college or some other type of training to help them to continue in that path to help others in so many other ways. And the next painting, the next slides. Here I wanted to show you the 3 slides together and how the early painting that I did in 2006 served as an inspiration 10 years later to do the other 2 paintings, the one in the center and the one on the right. So sometimes I look back at my own work to see what I have done, and and suddenly an idea, voila, comes up based on those early sketches and paintings that I had done. And so here you see the three paintings together. And if we can move on to the next, because I know I want to keep track of the time, and hopefully we have time for a Q&A. And again, speaking of the minorities, the LGBT has been another group that has been discriminated in almost every aspect. And with this image of the Statue of Liberty, she takes pride of welcoming and receiving all people, regardless of sexual orientation. And the flag, the color flag, the rainbow flag, happens to be last year watching the gay parade, and I am on the 11th floor in my studio, my apartment, and seeing that flag on the street, it was such a beautiful thing that I said, I got to do something with this image. And I took a photograph of when they were walking with the flag on the street, and eventually this is the painting that came out of that, viewing that flag during the parade. See, also the American dream is something that they are affected by discrimination. And if we can take a look at the next picture, and here we move into another area of current political affairs. Here, what I wanted to play with a dual perspective, looking from above and looking from below, to kind of create two stories together. You know, on the one hand, there are immigrants from all racial groups and backgrounds trying to reach up to the dividing wall that has been in question for the last 4 years. And then on the other side, we have the Statue of Liberty in a kind of shocking view, looking at those immigrants that are coming into the country. So it's a satire, if you will, about the political circumstances that we are facing with the immigrants that are trying to cross the border. And the next image. And again, we had seen what had been happening to children and families in the detention camps, that they have been separated, and children being placed in cages under inhumane living conditions. But yet here Liberty comes to the rescue of these children that have been separated from their families. And if we look at the next slide, Jim, and here she takes a more motherly, welcoming feeling towards these children that have been separated from their parents. And she's trying to comfort a child that is fragile, afraid, not knowing what his future or her future is going to be. And the next image. And here we have Trump's legacy too. There are about 3 legacies that have been evolved during this administration. I hope this is the end of the legacy that I want to paint. And here I wanted to bring attention to, again, freedom of speech. And if you protest the government, this is what might happen to you. You might be incarcerated and put even in detention camps, and lock her up, which was the theme of during the last presidential elections, and it seems to be repeating again this time around. And this is a risky condition that if we lose that liberty, we might lose a lot more. And the next image, and again, this is the other one of Trump's legacies. Please help me. The unemployment conditions that we are living are staggering. And just when I go outside and walk on the streets here in New York, I can see all this, so many people begging for food and for money. That is a very sad situation of what we are going through at this time in our lives. And on the next slide, this. All right. Again, I look back at my works to create other paintings, and the COVID-19 has been obviously has created a big impact in our lives, and it made me think about how can I create something that I could send a message perhaps, or portray something that represents the pandemic. So I look back at the early painting that I did, and I started the image, making points about the pandemic. If we go to the next slide, I also did references by taking a selfie picture as far as the position of the masks that I wanted to put in, instead of having the breathing mask that the Statue of Liberty had earlier in one of my paintings. So this is to kind of actualize or bring it to today's moment. So on the left is me doing a selfie, on the right how the painting began to evolve, and on the next slide we can see the final version of the painting. And we can move on to the next one. Yes, here is Fearless. And also with this painting, I wanted to pay homage to the essential workers, the policemen, the firemen, the nurses and the doctors, and even the delivery people who are out there really facing this virus on a daily basis. And these are the people that are protecting us so we can be safe. So in some ways, the painting reflects that intention of paying homage to our essential workers. So she's wearing her mask as well as the shield, and the virus, obviously, which is everywhere in the environment. And the next painting was also created with that in mind. It's called Grieving, and she's basically expressing the sadness for over the 225,000 lives that we have lost because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And during this time of the pandemic, of course, on the next slide, we can take a look at what was happening with the Black Lives Matter movement and the killings of Black citizens. We know of George Floyd, Eric Garner, Breonna Taylor, just to name a few, but there are hundreds and hundreds more that we will never know what happened to them. So one night I just woke up in the middle of the night and thinking about the concept for the painting, and I did this sketch in a post-it, one of those yellow post-its 4x4, and very quickly I sketched it out, and because I had the idea at the moment, and when you have that idea, you gotta put it down on paper as soon as possible. So on the next slide, Jimmy, the next day I woke up and I said, I got to do this painting. And I took a photograph of myself, and and I needed to have that, how the statue will hold the tablet on her hand. So I didn't have the tablet, so I picked up one of my kitchen pans to suggest the holding of the tablet. A friend of mine took several photographs, and eventually this was the one that came closer to how I wanted that picture to look. So I did the sketch on the right side. She even looks like me now that I look at it, to eventually create the painting. And if we take a look at the next slide, here is the final painting, Black Lives Matter. Everything here is kind of symbolic, the background. the white letters, the word in red, lives, and drippings coming out of each of the letters, implying the blood and the death of the many people that have been killed because of discrimination, because of the color of their skin. At the same token, I was thinking about, on the next slide, about everybody, because all lives matter. No matter what your religion is, what race you are, or what background you have, all lives matter. People lives matter regardless. So I try to also incorporate that in this painting and in the rainbow-looking background to suggest, at the same token, people from all races and backgrounds. And on the next two slides, which before we get to a little closure, because I know time is crucial, the Statue of
Liberty. We're down to maybe about 4 minutes, Raul.
4 minutes, okay. I'm going to make it fast. And this is a picture of her being like a marionette. The liberty is really manipulated by the powers that be. Our liberty, we seem to be losing them, and at the same token, losing that American dream. The fading of that dream is going away from us. And if we go to the last picture, because I think this is where the conclusion of, or wrapping up what the fading of the American dream might happen if we don't take responsibility, in particularly next week when we are for election time, that everybody should vote. And you vote for the candidate that you think is going to be the best candidate to represent all of us. So here is the painting called Hasta la Vista, Baby. Hasta la Vista, America, rather. And Vive la France, because she's going back to France like all the immigrants. You got to go back to your country where you came from. Liberty is going back to where she came from, which is France until now. And of course, the painting is said to be continued, because we don't know if this is the end of this particular sequence of the painting. And the last is, I just wanted to say thank you for your time, the privilege of your time, and I welcome your comments. Special thanks to Mott Community College for making this possible, to you, Jimmy, and Professor Gina Andrews, and of course, other people behind the scenes, Brian Williams and Tim Krantz, for making this possible.
Well, Raul, thank you so much for joining us today for Art Talk. It was a privilege to see your art, to get some insights into where you're coming from with it, and so incredibly poignant today as it was when you originally made this art. So, and please, everyone, heed Raul, go out, vote next week. Use your power to help keep our democracy alive. And I want to thank our media services at Mott Community College, and also, again, Brian Williams for helping to run this show behind the scenes and make it so seamless. So thank you, Raul, and thank you all for joining us. We hope to see you next week as we talk with Sarah Cohn about art during the pandemic. So thank you all, and goodbye.